race car patrol, but they don't turn into race cars. They turn into, well, actually defunct vehicles. Maybe they should have been called the Defunct Vehicle Patrol. Either way, today we're going to look at Roadhandler and Swindler from the Transformers Siege line in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share, and of course subscribe. Stick around, check out the channel, see what it is that catches your interest. Have a look at Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors NL, and me everywhere. And this is easily the weakest of the Wave 1 Micromasters. This is, if there's one set that you're going to skip on, it's got to be these guys. It's got to be these guys. They only really have one saving grace. Well, to be fair, this guy's not so bad, but this guy is just awful, just terrible. And that's really kind of disappointing. I'll explain what I mean when we head over to the table and take a closer look at these guys. So, of course, with one set of Micromasters down, we're going to go on and look at the next one, and I'm excited to take a gander at the Race Car Patrol. Just like with all of these sets, we get 2 out of 4 members. Originally, the members that were included in the group were Roadhandler, who was the leader of the group, Freewheeler, Swindler, and Tailspin. This time around, in this group of 2, we have the leader, Roadhandler, and we have Swindler. Here we have packaging, again, nice artwork of them in their alt modes up there, and on the back, it's the back. It is what it is. Again, they have like a weird combined mode thing. I don't know if I'm down for that. I don't even know if it's necessary. But it's there, so I guess we'll look at it. We have instructions, and they're actually nice, clear instructions. And there's one panel in particular that I enjoy, which is this one. It is their combined blaster mode. This is the multi-mech, I don't know, exhaust cannon or something, particle exhaust cannon. And it's interesting to note here that when you look at the stats that I think are strength, bullseye ratio, I don't know, and distance, this isn't that strong of a blaster. Maybe it's one you should just not bother making. And for a size comparison, here they are next to a Legends class figure, that being Power of the Prime's tailgate, and they're about half the size of a Legends class figure, which makes sense since these guys are micro after all. Now we get into the nitty-gritty. We get into grading these guys. The last time we looked at a Micromaster team, they did very well. What about these dudes? Well, we're missing Freewheeler and Tailspin. Hopefully we will get them at some juncture. Who knows? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. The gray and blue dude is Swindler, who, I don't know, he thinks he's smart, he's weak, you know, well actually he is bright, he's weak, and he's cool-headed. Now, in terms of his paint apps, just how accurate is he? I'm grading these guys based on their G1 toys because they weren't on the program. Now, yes, they were in the comics, but even that is a bit dicey, like how much they appeared, how often they appeared. They were in there. You could sort of go by, but the way that the old comics were colored, like I don't really trust that to always be the same. It was just the technology of the time. So, that being said, we're grading them based on their actual toys. This isn't bad. It is about, it's about an 8. It's about an 8. The window on the front of his shins, like, really that's just supposed to be gray, though I'm kind of glad it's black because I think that that's better. His shoulders, I like the blue, but they're not really supposed to be blue. Besides, that's pretty good. So I'm gonna say an 8. What about Roadhandler? Well, Roadhandler, I think, is definitely the stronger of the two here. He's the leader of the group. He considers himself to be very tough, and he talks big, and hey, maybe he is tough, even for such a little guy. When we talk about his paint apps, well, he had, even in the comics pages and stuff, like he had kind of like more of a presence, I suppose, but again, we're grading it based on the original toy, and in that regard, this guy is missing, I think, a bit of blue on his waist, but that's it. It's easily a 9.5. Easily a 9.5. So we have, say, an 8, and we have a 9.5. Not a bad start. So speaking of 9.5, let's start with the stronger of the two, that being Roadhandler first. The articulation, pretty good on the guy. Not really anything at the head, but the arms, they can go all the way around. His backpack is a bit big. It does make him a little bit back heavy, but you can get him to stand, if you kind of position him correctly. The head, again, I don't think it does anything. If it does, I don't want to twist it and risk breaking it or anything like that. The arms, they do go out. Not quite as much as I would like, but it's not bad. It's all right. Legs go back. They hit junk here if you get that out of the way. Actually, they won't go back anymore. That's as far back as the legs will go. Legs go back a little bit. They go well forward a lot. We have a little bit of a swivel at the ball joint of the hip, but not really a thigh rotation. We do have a knee, very deep knee bend actually, and we can do splits out to about there. I'm going to say the articulation has a couple of small limits, minor, and it has a couple of, see, like, there you go, the back heaviness, see? A couple of small limits, and I miss elbows. I'm going to say his articulation is about 8.5. So he had a 9.5 paint apps, an 8.5 articulation. Right now he's getting a 9. And as you might guess, the conversion's pretty simple for this guy. He turns into a vehicle that's reminiscent of a Trans Am. I don't even think Pontiac is a company anymore. That's sad. Still, what a great car. You fold up the legs. You push the arms in on the side. And you flip that down over. This arm over here, not quite incorrectly, and I just popped it off. That's the one thing about this guy. His arms do like to pop off their ball joints sometimes. If you're not careful. But in the end, boom, there you go. There's his vehicle mode. And perfect or imperfect, here is his vehicle mode, and he rolls like an absolute champion. I think it looks great. I think it's reminiscent of the original character. A lot of people have complained and said, hey, that car mode is too old. No, it's not. It's glorious. I'm glad that he turns into the thing that he originally was supposed to turn into. I love it. The conversion is great. It's easy, but unfortunately the arms do like to pop off the ball joints a little easier than I would like. That might be a case of, results will vary. Maybe that's just my copy, but I feel like I've heard a few people mention the same thing. Overall, I have to give the transformation a score of about an 8. He was getting a 9, so he's going to be getting an 8.5 overall. Now, how is his partner going to fare in comparison? I can tell you now, if you saw my best and worst of 2018 countdown, because I got these guys at the tail end of 2018, I can tell you now that number one was Swindler. And Swindler was not number 1 for 2018 as the best. He was number 1 for the worst. This is junk. Absolute junk. He has but one and only one saving grace. Now, his partner got a overall score of 8.5. This guy's starting out with an 8 for paint apps because they're not exactly accurate. Articulation next. He is very back heavy because of this. The arms do not come out any further from his body than this, like not at all, or you're going to break them off. In trying to get them to move around, all you're doing is knocking things into each other. They do it, but they do it very poorly. I'm waiting for his arms to break off. They're trash. Absolute poorly toleranced rubbish. Leg goes forward all the way, goes back all the way, which is nice. We have again the nice deep knee, and we have like splits out to there. It's not perfect, but it's all right, I guess, if we have to make do with it. The head, I don't think the head does anything. Gosh, he was an 8. I'll be generous and give him a 5. The arms actually really ruined it for me here. If they had just pulled out even a little bit, I could have lived with it. Like if the ball pegs pulled out a little bit, or you know, if the arms like collapsed up and then you had to pull them out to kind of bring them down a bit or something, just something more to get them a little further away from the body. I hope that this mold is not used again. It should be thrown in a fire and burned and totally forgotten about. It's just absolutely awful. So he was getting an 8, a 5 for this. Overall, right now he's a 6.5. What about his conversion? Well, because of his rubbish trash arms, his conversion isn't as nice as you would like it to be. This whole hood piece here on the back, it comes up and it goes in between the arms, but it's so poorly toleranced that you gotta kind of just squeeze it in there until it like fits and locks in. It doesn't like to lock in, at least not on my copy. I don't like this. I just don't like this. Like, you can see the problem I'm having right there. Whew! And after you fiddle with the hood and the arms, eventually you get something that looks like this. Alright. Then we have to put the legs together and we fold them up over. And then in the end, finally, we have this alt mode, which, if I'm not mistaken, and I know for a fact I'm not mistaken because I double checked it, is a DeLorean. And that's the one saving grace for this guy, is that he turns into a DeLorean. Yes, indeed. Just as Roadhandler turns into a Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, this guy, or at least something that resembles it, I don't know how licensing and stuff works, but originally that's what he was. This guy turned into the DeLorean DMC-12 sports car. I assume that this is still pretty accurate to that. Okay, so to get to this multi-mech nonsense thing, we're going to begin with this guy first. Now, I have a slight little cheat done because I already have this handle started to be brought out. You have to bring that out. You then open out the legs as if we were going back to robot mode. And this actually brings us to a piece of articulation that I neglected to mention earlier. He does have a waist rotation. His arms are such rubbish that even a waist rotation does not help his articulation score. I stand by it. So that's it. That's him ready to go. He is the top half of this blaster thing, machiny thingy. So then what about the other half? Well, we're going to take this guy out of it. And now we will focus on what to do with this little dude. Again, we open out his legs. Like so. And turn him around. Now, right like in his chest and tummy, there is a big hole. That big hole is in order to accommodate I guess like the handle, I suppose, so to speak. I don't know. This isn't good. Okay, so this also has a little handle that has to come up. You could put them in either configuration. This peg here could go into the chest of Swindler, or Swindler's peg can go into the chest of this guy. It kind of doesn't matter how you do it. So I guess I'll do it the way the instructions have it. The way the instructions have it is this peg here goes into the chest of Swindler, so that you're going to end up having, there's the peg, There's the chest of Swindler. Goes in there. And you end up with this. Is this any good? Honestly now, is this any good? And just because he so rarely ever gets to be the star of anything, here is Tailgate holding this thing. I like the vehicle modes. That's the strength in this set. I like the vehicle modes. The robot modes, one of them is okay, the other is trash. The conversion is alright for one of them. It's finicky and trash for the other. It's a mixed bag set at best, but it did not need this mode, and I can guarantee you that while it's cool to have that versatility and play value, it absolutely was not needed in this case. And here we are once again, and see what I mean? Like, their combined mode is weak, according to the stats, and it looks like trash. Don't do it. It's not good. I neglected to point out that he has a waist, but because his arms are so trash, the waist doesn't help this guy at all. It's a mold that I don't want to see reused. I don't like it. I like the DeLorean alt mode, but that's it. And a DeLorean's not a race car. I guess it's a sports car. I guess from the 80s, I suppose. But like, it's not even a company that exists anymore. I don't like this. I don't like this guy. He looks good, but I don't enjoy him not one little bit. It is, for as great as the Siege line is, and everybody toting how wonderful it is, this is not up to standard. Then we have this guy, who's pretty good, and by the way, I think I neglected to mention that he too has a waist swivel. His articulation's good. This guy's pretty solid for the most part, except when you're converting him, his arms like to pop off the ball joints. It's not a big deal, and maybe that is like results will vary, but he is easily the winner. I like him. The arms popping up, it doesn't really bother me. It's not a big enough a deal to bother me. The backpack makes him a little back heavy. But again, he doesn't turn into a race car. He turns into a sports car, like a Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. But like that's not a company. That's not a thing anymore. Now people have complained and said, "Hey, these are outdated vehicles," and obviously they're outdated vehicles. But who cares? Who cares? It is the G1 awesomeness of these little guys that make them spectacular. This guy, less so. Like I said in the very beginning of all this, if there's one of these sets to skip, it is this one. It's the weakest of all three, for sure. And that's a bit of a shame because the alt modes are probably my absolute favorite. Anyway, let me know what your experience has been with these two little guys and what you think of them. As always, I appreciate you dropping by, give me some of your very valuable time. Hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit right here inside the videos.